Hi, this is Bobby Kimbrough, and welcome to Off the Cuffs. Today, we're very excited to have with us Ms. Vivian Perez Chandler. You know, many times we talk about off the cuffs, we talk about inclusion, we talk about transparency, we talk about just having real conversations. And so I'm excited to have you with us today because I know this is going to be a very interesting conversation from your beginning, what you've been through, where you are now, and just basically talking about inclusion, talking about relationships in our community. So welcome to Off the Cuffs. Glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you here. So, you know, a lot of people don't know you. A lot of people don't know who is Vivian Perez Chandler. Tell us about you, who you are. That way we can kind of get a baseline and we can go forward.
Absolutely. So I am a native Guatemalan. Moved to the States when I was in 2002. Have been living here for almost 20 years. So
Wow.
Winston-Salem is home to me.
Okay.
Families here, went to school here.
Where'd you go to school at here?
I went to North Forsyth High School.
Okay, we got something in common. I went to North.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did not know that. So North Forsyth, went to Guildford Tech, got an associate's in IT, and then graduated from Pembroke, University of Pembroke, with my bachelor's in nonprofit administration.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. So you came from Guatemala. You came here from Guatemala, matriculated through high school, went to Guildford Tech. Then you got your 4-year degree from Pembroke. So what are you doing now? What do you do in the community now? I know that you do a lot in the community. I know when we were talking off mic, you were talking about the community, pathways to success. We were talking about so many things. So, share your story with us because a lot of people don't really know your story.
Yeah. So, we came with a visa, overstayed our visa for opportunities, as many people come here to the States for. And at that point, education was the biggest conversation in our family. My parents wanted us to have a good education and higher education. So one of the reasons they immigrated here was for that. When I was in high school, I wanted to become an FBI agent.
Really?
I think a lot of students, once they watch too much CSI, you want to do that at some point. So that was it for me. But then when I was in high school, when I was in my senior year, I realized that I couldn't do that because of my immigration status. When you overstay a visa, you obviously become undocumented if you don't take care of that before coming. And I think one of the biggest things to share is that, unfortunately, there is no pathway to coming here legally and getting everything kind of set up before if you want to stay. So by overstaying, we were here illegally. So the pathway to getting to college was a lot harder because even if you've lived here for 10 plus years, you still have to pay out-of-state tuition. We pay taxes, we pay everything, regardless of our immigration status. But, it was a very difficult situation just because, one, my parents didn't go to college here. So navigating the whole college system is who do I talk to, what opportunities exist for paying for college. And thankfully now that has changed a lot. But it was a very difficult just situation in not knowing where to go. I gave up the FBI opportunity because you have to be a citizen.
But you're a citizen now, right?
I am.
And if you're under 37, you still got an opportunity to do that. The cutoff is 37.
Well, I am under 37.
So
but
you still can fulfill that dream.
I don't know if I would want to. After just trying to become very involved in the community, I didn't see other people that looked like me in higher places and places of leadership, which is how I truly started volunteering in a lot of organizations because I wanted to learn more about the work they were doing. And so from that, I consider myself an advocate especially for the Hispanic Latinx community, for opportunities and engagement and that inclusion you mentioned, because we are a part of the community. And so,
well, just food for thought, because you don't see somebody in leadership where you want to be at, don't let that discourage you from not going there. Um, I spent 20 plus years as a special agent with the U.S. Department of Justice, with the government, and a lot of times the doors are waiting for somebody to kick them open and show up. And so don't let, because you don't see it, think that you can't obtain it. If it's something that you still want to do, you're U.S. citizens, you have a 4-year degree, swing it.
Yeah.
Swing the bat. You never know. You might hit a home run. I say that because there's so many people in places in life that, well, I don't see somebody that look like me, so maybe I shouldn't try that. Mm-hmm. You can't never do that. Maybe you're supposed to be the person, the first. Maybe you're supposed to be the one. You never know how God is orchestrating things. Mm-hmm. You never know how the world is waiting on you to show up. There's a lot of firsts. Every day there's somebody that's first to do this, first to do that. The universe draws and creates that. But yeah, so I'm glad to have you here. I'm glad that you're advocating. And so I know we were talking about pathways. How do you do certain things? You and I were talking about what was my pathway to where I'm at now. My pathway, we have one thing in common. We both went to North Forsyth. I'm a resident, was born and raised here in Winston-Salem. Grew up, most people know I grew up in East Winston, 405 East 25th Street. Born and raised in Happy Hill. My family moved over to 25th Street when I was 8 years old. I grew up like most people in the 60s and 70s did. I grew up playing basketball, dreams and hopes like everyone else did. And like you, I realized that education was my pathway to anywhere I was going. I needed to be educated. I needed to be able to read, write, and speak. And my mother was a big proponent of education. And so here I am. I started my career with the police department, Winston-Salem Police Department. I did 6 years there, 4 years with probation parole, and the next 20 plus years I did as a special agent, traveling the world, doing some exciting things, and retired in 16, and God smiled on me, and here I am. And so I don't put ceilings on what people can do. Mm-hmm. People put their own ceilings on what they can do. Absolutely. And so let's talk about the Hispanic community. That's what you want to talk about. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. I think, one of the biggest things, and you might have seen it as well as you traveled, because you learned Spanish along the way.
I did.
In your career.
I did. I had to.
Yeah. So I think, one of the biggest things is the fear of police in the United States, because it's so different than in our home countries. We can't trust the police in our home countries. There's so much crime. It's not the same. So I think, one of the biggest things here, I think, as I was growing up and up until I had the opportunity to sit with Chief Thompson, was, is the police, can I trust the police? So, what would you say to someone who has lived their entire life thinking, I can never trust the police, no matter what? Like, how would you be able to gain trust from a community that has not ever trusted the police?
Well, what I would tell you is that here in this city, in this county, you can trust the police. You can trust them because the leaderships that are present there are people that believe in integrity. They believe in transparency. They believe in doing the right thing. I understand that culture in Spanish-speaking countries and other countries where there's a lack of trust for law enforcement. You can attribute that to a lot of things, what they pay them, mm-hmm. the culture of how they move and what they do. So I kind of understand that, in certain countries that I worked in, we didn't trust them as agents. And so I get it and I understand that. But here, where we are, I believe that, a lot of times people think that law enforcement is bad people or they're people from another planet. There are people that live next door to you. There are people that live in your same community.
Right.
There are people that raise and live, go to church, they shop in the same community you do. What makes them different is they get up the next day and go do a different job. And so as a whole across the country, I believe you can trust law enforcement. Now, of course, there are some bad actors. There are bad actors. I've had this conversation. There are bad preachers. There are bad teachers. There are bad everything. But that, to me, that is such a minute number when it comes to the whole scheme of things. In this county right here, I believe that is, without question, 2, 3 of the best law enforcement agencies in the country. Kernersville, Winston, and the Sheriff's Office, without question. I know the woman and the man that leads those organizations, and without question, you have no worries when it comes to fearing law enforcement here where you reside and where you live, because we have built what organization on integrity, credibility, and accountability and transparency. That's how we live here. Whether you be Hispanic, whether you be white, whether you be black, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, one of a personal story to share some of my interactions with it actually, most of them have been with the sheriff's department, because so in our home, unfortunately, we my father was an abuser to my mother. So there was a lot of domestic violence there, and I was the child who had to call the police. That was the only way that my dad would actually fear and stop. And so one of the things that I will say is that I always felt safe knowing that anytime someone from the sheriff's department, an officer, would come at the door and ask, "Are you guys okay?" and all of that. And even as I grew up, the officers actually remembered me as that child, and they would always say, how's your family, even afterwards. And I thought, there's no way they remembered me, because this was such a long time ago, but they did. And I felt a sense of, it's not just a job to them. It's actually, they care about the individual. And so those interactions were unfortunate, but I will say, I can tell you that personally, not knowing any of them, that I felt as though they were that person that you're saying. They're people just like I am, and just like anyone else.
So one of the things that we have done here is that we make a point to go out on patrol. I show up on patrol at least two, 3 times a week, just riding, listening to the radio, falling in on calls, because that is my way of I guess, measuring customer service. That's my way of quality control, to seeing and hearing what the guys and what the women are doing. I say that because at the end of the day, people want to be treated fairly. People want to be treated with some respect and dignity. And so we make a point to do that. You said something about growing up or having experienced that. So you said that when the police or the sheriff's office showed up, you felt comfortable. So do you share that in the Hispanic community? Or as a whole, how does the Hispanic community feel about law enforcement?
I don't think we share that.
Share the interaction, not the particular incident. I'm saying share the interaction, because sometimes in law enforcement, people share the bad things that happen, but they very rarely share, you know what, the sheriff's office showed up at my house, we had a situation, and here's how they treated us, here's how they responded to us. Because I think that when you put that message out there and you start to change the narrative, because they can say, well, I remember Vivian told us that she called the sheriff's office and here's what happened. And so I think that once you start to put positive stories out there, it changes how people see law enforcement. Because at the end of the day, I don't want the Hispanic community to see us as bad guys or see us as not there for the people. We are servants, We refer to the sheriff's office as the office of the people. It's the office of the people, because the people decide who sits in their office, It's the people's funding that fund this office. So, of course, it's the office of the people. And the last thing that we were going to do, and I say this, whether it's in the Hispanic community, whether it's in any community in this entire county, we're going to serve with a level of professionalism that is unquestionable.
Yeah, I think because of how young I was and how taboo that was for a child to call on their parents. I mean, just in the community, as you know, we don't do those things. So I don't know that I actually share that a lot with the people around us because of I was the child who called the police on their dad, and that was just very inappropriate in a sense. So I didn't get to share that message, but I'm glad that I'm sharing it today here because I think, it to me, I don't fear the police, but I did fear him because of when my immigration status was different than it is today.
So you know how to ask this question. That's why we call it off the cuffs, right? And sometimes I've been accused of just speaking my mind. And so, but first I want to say that I applaud you for having the courage to say that you grew up in a household where that took place. But the next thing that comes to my mind is, how did that affect you? Mm-hmm. Knowing that your status was questionable and you having to witness that in your household and then having to call law enforcement.
So that's the fear part, that I think a lot of undocumented people live with every day. I saw it with my parents and a lot of our neighbors that there's a lot of fear. You fear of calling because you never know whether something you say is going to get you deported.
So let me ask you this. What would you say to families that are going to watch this, that are watching and people that are hearing us, so because my status is questionable and I'm illegal, do I stay in an abusive situation? Do I let someone harm me? Do I not call law enforcement? What would you suggest to them? I have my answer, but I wanted to hear it from you.
Well, having lived through it, I call them, ask for help, no matter who you reach out to, as long as it's someone that's trustworthy. So the police, in that sense, the police is here to protect those residents, the people that live here. Call them because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to potentially save your life and the life of your children or whoever's in the household. And I don't think that my mother or we regret making those phone calls because she was protected by the police. She was protected by law enforcement and was able to get out of that situation because of the steps we took to call and actually trust someone outside of our household that we thought loved us, right? But was not doing the right thing. So I would say pick up the phone and call someone to actually, be there to support you because this is something that you can't do it alone. It's a situation that you need a network, a support network, and you guys are there. The police department is there. There are lots of organizations around here that are here to actually provide support in that.
Okay, I appreciate that. I mean, what you said is basically I would echo those same remarks because regardless of what your situation is, if you're in harm's way, you need to call someone. Bottom line. So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you ask me some questions. I'm going to let you for the next few minutes talk to me some things that you want to know as it relates to what we're doing, how can we help you, and just anything you want to ask me, because I think that so many times we sit and we have dialogue and there are questions that you want to ask me. So without me taking the conversation and running with it, I'm going to switch roles with you and just let you ask me some questions as to how, what you feel that we can do or you feel that is needed or not needed in the Hispanic community.
Yeah, thank you for that. So within talking about inclusion, what opportunities or what training do officers go through to be able to, whether it's navigating, talking to someone that may not speak English, when the police is called, or when law enforcement is called? What training do the officers go through for that?
So one of the things that I'm very proud of is that since we've come into office, we have been intentional about being inclusive with Spanish-speaking team members. We've hired more Spanish-speaking personnel than they've ever hired here before. We've hired more minorities than they've ever hired here before. We have a more diverse personnel than we've ever had here in the history of this sheriff's office. I'm very proud of that. I'm also proud that the training that we do now, de-escalation training, we bring people in to talk about everything from diversity, equity. We're probably the only sheriff's office in the state of North Carolina that has a diversity, inclusion officer that works directly in the sheriff's office, not someone that works at the city or works at the county. They work directly here in the office. She has a PhD and a law degree, and basically it is someone that not only keeps us on task, but also prepares training and a lot of other things for us, because I think that it's one thing to say you're doing it. It's another thing to have somebody right there that's making sure you're doing it. And so I think that that's just one of the things. Another thing we do is that we're out in the community, whether it's the Hispanic community, whether it's the black community, the white community. We make a presence. We believe that our presence makes a difference. Anytime you're present in something, you have an opportunity to change the outcome. And so that's one of the things we're doing. We have Hispanic speakers on patrol. We have Hispanic speakers throughout the building. And so I think that was the first thing, because I know that what a difference it makes to call for law enforcement, and when you get there or when they get there, the guy or the woman speaks Spanish. You're like, wow, right? We have some of our SROs are Spanish speakers. Matter of fact, I was coming down the hallway just now, and two of our new hirees are Spanish speakers. So we applaud ourselves for being diverse. We applaud ourselves for making the necessary changes to be a part of the community.
And that's great to hear, because, like you said, this is the first time in the history that you guys are you're reflecting what the community looks like. Of
course.
And I applaud you all for that, because it takes someone to actually notice that we currently do not reflect the community we work with. So thank you for that work.
Of course. I mean, that, to me, I can't serve a community if I don't at least represent the community. I have to reflect some aspects of the community. It's a must that I do that. I've heard many times before people say, wow, we've never seen that kind of diversity in the sheriff's office. I smile when I hear that. I smile when people say that, because we were intentional about that. And as a result of that, the morale is higher than it has ever been, productivity. And I think that's, to me, is how it should be.
Yeah.
Everybody should be given a chance. Everybody should be on the same footing, regardless of whether you're Hispanic, whether you're white, whether you're black. And one of the things that when you first come in the door downstairs, there's a picture up there. There's a picture of the chief deputy and the major. Well, they were out one day and somebody was snapping pictures and caught a picture of them. They were laughing and like having fun with each other. And the wording on the picture is that we will always do what is right, not black or white or Republican or Democrat, but we will always do what is right.
Yeah.
And that's our mantra, and that's how we move.
And so, as you mentioned, recruitment has gone up to be diverse. What would you suggest or recommend for maybe a kid who is looking up to becoming to being a part of law enforcement? What would you say to them as to what could be a pathway for them to be up here or be a part of the sheriff's department at some point?
So we have an Explorers program. We have Sergeant Ballard, who her and two other of our deputies head up the Explorers program.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have young men and women, white, black, and Hispanics, that want to be a part or one day work in law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And what I tell them is this, is that if you come through the program and you stay with the program, and at the age that you're able to be hired, I will give you first shot.
Mm.
And we have done that. Matter of fact, we have hired two Spanish speakers in the last year. I'll tell you a funny story, right? So there's a young lady. I used to see her in the building all the time, right? And I would speak to her, and I had no idea who she was, but I would just see her, and I would speak to her. And so one day, I asked, I said, who was the young lady right there, right? What's she do here? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people you see in the building, there's a lot of people here now, 600, almost 700 people that work, that are part of the team here at the Sheriff's Office. Some I know on site, some it takes me a minute to recognize, and some I don't even know.
Right.
But this young lady I kept seeing in the building walking around, and so I finally asked somebody, I said, what's she do here? And they said, she's a deputy. And I said, well, where she work at? And they said that she hadn't turned 21 yet. And I said, what? They said, well, she was a part of the Explorers program,
Mm-hmm.
very sharp young lady. She went through BLET and did extremely well, but we can't give her a gun and put her in patrol training until she turned 21.
Mm.
And so the joke around here is that y'all hired this young girl and y'all kept her here in the building, hiding her from me until she turned 21, right? That's the joke that we have around here, right? So she's actually doing a phenomenal job, So I said that to say that we go out of our way to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that we're representing the population here in the county.
That's
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that again.
Yeah, but I kept seeing a young lady like, well, who is she? I mean, she should be in school somewhere. I mean, that's how young she looked. And I thought it was somebody that was bringing their child to work every day. I thought maybe it's bring your child to work week. Or maybe it's bring your child to work month. Yeah. And then I said, well, let me ask, who is this young lady? And they said, she's a deputy. And I said, are you serious? And they said, yeah. Well, when's she going to work? I mean, what's she doing here every day?
Mm-hmm.
And then they explained to me. And I walked away and started laughing. So when she turned 21, right, I said, I want to know when is her birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And they told me. And so we went out and bought her a cake, showed up down in, I think she was working in records then, showed up down in records with the cake. And I can't carry a note, but I was singing my lungs out, happy birthday to you, because you finna hit the streets. You finna go to work.
Right.
But we go out of our way to make sure, we approach this as a family atmosphere, and we want our family to represent our community.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned earlier that you guys, you go and patrol the areas to kind of build that sense of relationship and trust. How do you do that? And especially again with Hispanic Latinx communities.
We link with the Hispanic League. We are part of the Hispanic community. The festivals that they have here, the celebration that you have at the Haynes Brand every year. You guys invite me. We show up for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think you've been out much. You must have been hiding or something, right?
Are we all hiding right now with this pandemic happening?
I'm not.
You're not.
No,
but
no.
I will say
Yeah.
I have
Can you
been
believe she tried to
trying
call me out on the slide, right? She didn't realize we out there. Yeah.
I did not know, but that's good to know. And I think, because of that same potentially just not asking the right questions
Yeah.
is, we don't know that you guys are right around the corner.
Yeah, we everywhere. We like to win. We everywhere.
Yeah. So do you ever do any whether it's neighborhoods that maybe have something or start like going into neighborhoods?
Yeah, so we actually have went into Piedmont Circle. We currently occupy an apartment there.
Okay.
To where we give out coats, we give food, we do a lot of things in the community.
Yeah.
We have GED classes. Yeah.
And that's so important, again, because I don't think...
And that has nothing to do with law enforcement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we believe that, in order to be in the community, you got to have credibility. Mm-hmm. We can't serve a place where we don't have credibility.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hardest piece for, for the Hispanic community is how do we build that trust? But I can tell you that from listening to you today saying, well, call us. We're here to, and you said this doesn't happen here locally in Forsyth County where someone should fear if they call the police that you are going to be deported immediately. Of course, there are different cases, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But that's completely different.
Totally different.
But if someone is fearful or needs help, then they should be able to call without having to fear that. So thank you for sharing that and telling us,
of course,
here right now that you should feel okay to feel safe to call law enforcement.
I truly enjoyed talking with you. Did you see the video that we put out with Stop the Violence? I
did. And there were some conversations in Spanish. I got the opportunity to say something in Spanish as well.
Yeah. So where did you think we got those people from if they didn't believe in us or know us,
Well, no, I definitely know that the people believe in the work that you guys are doing. Okay. And it was great. I will say it was really great to have been included or have a Spanish voice.
Of course.
Because, you said, we're part of the community, and it really shows that you all did that, and so making us feel like we are represented.
Of course, if we talk it, we're gonna walk it.
Absolutely.
Sure, I'm glad that everything worked out for you. I'm glad that you finish up your studies. I'm glad that things worked out for you in your household. Very thankful you're a U.S. citizen. So go in and fulfill some of your dreams. Don't put them on hold. Take them off the shelf. If you want to be an agent, go apply. Quantico would welcome you. Yeah. I might can make some phone calls and get you in the pipeline.
Oh,
so,
man. I'm going to have to rethink all this then.
Yeah. You're young. You got plenty of time. 37 is the cutoff. Yeah. So you got some time.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, one of the things that you're mentioning right now is it's just how important it is to connect with others, to have a network of people, to, again, and which is why I started volunteering, was because I wanted to make sure that, like you said, even though I didn't see people that looked like me, I wanted to be the first. I wanted to make sure that our voices were being heard and we were considering what challenges the Hispanic community went through. But it's so important to meet people, to show up genuinely, and then you never know what opportunities might come up from you volunteering or you meeting that person. So.
You know what I'm gonna leave you with just came in my mind that I heard several years ago, that if God gives you the vision, He gives you the provisions. In other words, if He give you the vision, He'll give you all that you need to get to where you're going to. And so I want to thank you for being a part of this conversation. I want to thank you for stopping by. I want to thank you for your volunteerism in the community, in the Hispanic community. I look forward to talking to you again. If you need anything from the Sheriff's Office, count us in, count it done.